What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the final days, really at this point, the final day of the regular season. As wow, the Eastern Conference playoff race. I know the last 2 weeks has been a lot of talk about who's going to back their way into the playoffs, and that is not the case anymore. All of the teams right now that are trying to force their will into the playoffs are winning. The Islanders clinched a playoff spot last night, so the Islanders will take on the Hurricanes as the second and third spot in the Metro. So now the only spot left in the Stanley Cup playoffs resides in the wild card second positioning in the Eastern Conference. We're going to take a look at the teams today who are in competition for that and who will ultimately come out. We're going to try and figure that out today. So this is it. This is the final day for three of the four teams that we are talking about. Two of them are playing each other, which I made a video last week talking about that matchup and how big it would be for both of these teams. Here we are today. It is a huge matchup between those teams. And then, of course, there's one other team playing tomorrow night, so we'll kind of preview that as well. So, let's start off with the matchup tonight. 4-point game. Washington, Philadelphia. That is going to be a huge game. This is a game that, for the Philadelphia Flyers, for everything that they have done wrong over the past 3-4 weeks, they can avenge themselves with a win over the Washington Capitals that is potentially going to make the difference. Now, they're going to need some help because they are 1 point back of the Capitals and the Red Wings. I think they're going to need more help, but things can still work in their favor if they beat Washington, which means Washington doesn't get a win, right? I think Philly has to win in regulation. They need Detroit to lose the rest of the way, and I think they need the Penguins to lose the rest of the way. And that's honestly the least likely scenario at this point because of the way the Flyers have been playing, but it is not impossible. The Flyers have had a really tough stretch here. I think most Flyers fans have already kind of checked out. They've accepted their fate at this point because they just see what's happened. But in technicality, they are not eliminated yet. And we're going to try and pull up the picture for you guys here real quick, just so you get an idea of kind of what the standings are like, instead of me trying to just explain it. And let's see if I can find it. Boom. That's what we're talking about. All right, but that's not what we're looking at. Let me pull it up for you guys. Let's get to the standings. There we go. So, the Eastern Conference standings right now, as they sit, we got to go to the wild card format, of course. And there we go. This is your situation right now. So, let me zoom in a little bit. Can I zoom in? Yes, there we go. Perfect. All right. So that's what we're looking at. So the Washington Capitals currently sit in the wild card position with 89 points. Detroit has 89 points. Philly has 87 and Pittsburgh has 88. So basically tonight, Philly-Washington. Washington wins that game. They punch their ticket to the playoffs. For Philly, I believe if Philly loses, of course, if Philly loses, they're done. And I think they need to win in regulation, yes, because if Washington picks up a single point, that means they would get in over Philly. Philly would be eliminated. That would be 3 points, and the season's over. Detroit, we're going to get to them in a minute because they were, holy. But let's get to Washington first. Yeah, Washington has played some really good hockey recently. We're starting to see that energy, the emotion at the end of that game against the Bruins. You saw Nick Dowd putting away the empty netter, kind of pickpocketing Marchand. I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, might have enjoyed that a little bit. But the emotion from the Washington Capitals and the euphoria at Capital One Arena, they knew how important that game was for them to win against a good Boston Bruins team that's likely going to win the Atlantic Division. That was a huge win for the Caps. And their game here against the Flyers, you need that same energy, if not even more. And looking at how these two teams have played here, in these kinds of situations, Washington's been the team that's been able to win these games in the tough situations, and the Flyers just have not. So In that sense, Washington should be favored here. You know, they currently hold the spot. They hold their destiny. They win tonight. They beat the Philadelphia Flyers. They're in the playoffs. I think I think Detroit at this point would need to win, and the Capitals have to lose. Um, Even if they lose in overtime, I believe that the Red Wings, as long as the Red Wings win and the Capitals lose in any fashion, Detroit would get in. So that's important to look at. And you know, talking about Detroit, I mean, holy cow! I was watching that game against Montreal Canadiens, and I'm like, all right, this game's over. You know, they're probably not winning this game. Kind of a goose egg here for the Red Wings because they had that tough game against the Capitals earlier this week. Charlie Lindgren, you know, really standing on his head, and proved to be a problem. Well, you know, it seemed like that was it, but they've kind of stuck around in the chase, and that was a huge win. Lucas Raymond with a tying goal in the dying seconds of regulation and the overtime winner. Lucas Raymond is a big time performer right now for the Red Wings, and you know, that's kind of how you expected it to go, right? So the Red Wings are still in the chase, and then that leaves Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was my pick to make the playoffs here, and the way I'm thinking of it right now, Pittsburgh has been playing very well. Also, um, they just beat Nashville, who Nashville's looked a little bit vulnerable here down the stretch. I'm actually a little concerned for the Preds in the playoffs, but good on the Penguins getting a big win there. They beat the Bruins. Oh no, they lost to the Bruins in Pittsburgh, which kind of that was the Red Wings game the other day against Washington, right? Like, ah, shit, we really needed 2 points in this game. They didn't get the 2 points. They lost to the Bruins in regulation. And you kind of felt like, oh man, this is going to be a rough road to the finish, which it still is for the Penguins, but it is still possible. Um, and same thing is down in Washington. The euphoric energy from beating the Predators, that was a huge win for the Penguins, and it keeps them in the chase for another day. Now, for the Penguins to make the playoffs, they need both the Red Wings and the Capitals to lose, and I believe they actually have to lose in regulation. Um, and then, obviously, Pittsburgh needs to win tomorrow night against the Islanders, and they might catch an Islanders team with their bellies a little full, right? They just clinched the playoff spot. There's no way they can move up or down in the standings. Not to say the Islanders have nothing to play for, but they don't really, they shouldn't be as motivated as the Penguins should be for that game at UBS Arena. So in terms of Pittsburgh, this is a situation they can maybe catch the Islanders on, you know, game 82, kind of, you know, napping their way to their series against Carolina. That could be an advantage for the Penguins, and hopefully 2 points for the Penguins. Um, so that's their situation. And then, of course, um, you know, like I said, the Red Wings are really interesting because I would love to see the Red Wings make the playoffs. I just don't know if it's going to happen here. That loss to the Capitals really is going to be the difference, I think. And at this point, it is the difference. They have the same amount of points, but Washington has the tiebreaker. And that loss, that's going to sting for Red Wings fans if they don't make the playoffs. They're going to really remember that game, against Charlie Lindgren and the Caps last week. But the good news for the Red Wings, tonight they play Montreal again. So they have a favorable schedule compared to these other teams. You beat them again. You beat them last night. Can you beat them again today? Should be an easy call. Maybe not. Who knows? Montreal's been playing decent down the stretch. Not an easy victory. For Pittsburgh, like I said, they have to go out to Long Island to take on the Islanders tomorrow, at least at the making of this video. Tomorrow they'll play the Islanders. Washington and Philly are up against each other, and that game will decide between those two who is still in the race after this point. And that's it. That is where we're at now. There's only one game left on the schedule for each of these teams, and we are going to decide who makes the playoffs. Now, my prediction I think last week, 2 weeks ago, I made a video about the playoff race in the East, and thank you to all of you that watched that video and liked it and were commenting, because I got a lot of good feedback from that. But I want to mention as well, as I was on my, because I did a poll on my YouTube channel, which if you aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys should definitely should subscribe to the channel, because I do a poll, and the poll that I did was, here, let me see if I can pull it up for you guys. So the poll was on our community tab, and I asked you guys, who do you guys think is going to make the playoffs? So thank you to 20 of you voted. And I'm in agreement here with you guys on this one because looking at the standings, there you go. You got Washington, Detroit, Philly, and Pittsburgh. 40% of you said Washington, 30% of you said Detroit, 10% said Philly, and 20% said Pittsburgh. And like I said, I'm mostly in agreement with this one because, I think the Red Wings, like I said, what's the difference probably between the Capitals and the Red Wings right now? It's that game they played the other day. So I'm really excited to see how the end of this season goes. It's going to be really exciting. We're going to find out our final matchups here. And if Washington wins tonight, well, Pittsburgh has a meaningless game tomorrow, which does kind of suck. But that's the reality of the sport. If Washington wins tonight, they hold the cards for their destiny because they have the tiebreaker over Detroit. They have more points than Philly and Pittsburgh. They're in. They just need to beat the Flyers. And that's it. And we'll see if they can do that tonight. That's going to be really how this goes. And, the way Charlie Lindgren's been playing, he's been playing really good for the Caps. Ovechkin's been getting on the board. They've been getting some depth scoring here and there. I think the Caps take that final wildcard spot, but I want to know what you guys think. Who do you think takes that final wildcard spot in the East? Let me know down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time. Peace out, guys.